Welcome to the Hope for the Animals podcast, a project of compassionate living. I'm your host, Hope Ohanic, and today we are going across the pond to the UK and getting into some fantastic activism that's happening over there. But before we jump into the interview, I have a brief announcement. If you are in the Northern California area, I want to be sure you know about our upcoming Sonoma County Veg Fest on September 28th. It's in Santa Rosa at the Santa Rosa Veterans Building, just about an hour north of San Francisco. And my nonprofit, Compassionate Living, organizes the event. Well, I organize the event, and it just keeps getting bigger and better every year with new surprises. This year, we'll be hosting the International Vegan Film Fest, which is a collection of short, award winning films from around the world, all focused on animals and the planet. We're also going to have a new food vendor that I'm really excited about. They're called Vegan Circus, and they're from the Sacramento area. And they have like all that crazy fun fair food, right? All vegan. So they've got like corn dogs and the big soft pretzels and cotton candy and funnel cakes. I don't even really know what funnel cakes are. I don't think I ever had funnel cake before I was vegan. Anyway, I'm really excited to try some of that. What's that T-shirt that has? I think it's from Compassion Company. It has all of the fun food like ice cream cones and stuff, and it says, "Anything you can eat, I can eat vegan." Well, that is getting more and more true, especially at Veg Fests. So please join us if you can at the Sonoma County Veg Fest, Saturday, September 28th. There will be a link to more information in the show notes. And then just a really quick save the date announcement since we're talking about Veg Fests. If you are a bit further north in Oregon, in the Pacific Northwest, I'm also going to be organizing the first ever Eugene Vegan Fest. It's going to be next year, May 4th, 2025. So if you've ever wanted to travel to Eugene, Oregon, one of I would argue the most beautiful places on earth and some of the most amazing nature around all of Oregon. Come and join us next year, early May, May 4th, for the Eugene Vegan Fest. And if you are not in either of those areas, I'm sorry, but it is Veg Fest season and many vegan festivals happen in the fall. So I hope that you can go and celebrate in your community with your local vegan fest or veg fest. And if you don't have one, maybe you can start one. All right, let's now shift into our interview for the day. All right, today I am so happy to welcome Rose Patterson. She is the co-director and actions coordinator for Animal Rising. After getting an MS in animal welfare science, ethics, and law, and working for World Animal Protection, she joined Animal Rising in 2020. She's worked on their strategy for multiple campaigns, designed and coordinated dozens of actions, and led large, complex projects mobilizing hundreds of people, including the disruption on the Grand National Horse Race, which garnered a great deal of press. And more recently, the largest investigation into animal farming in UK history, targeting the RSPCA's Assured scheme. And we're going to talk about that today. Welcome to the podcast, Rose.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So I'm really impressed with Animal Rising's work. I've kind of known about you a little bit, but then now that you've gotten into this humane washing issue with the RSPCA, I've really been interested in this. But let's back up and get to know you. So let's start with why and when you went vegan.
Yeah, I guess my journey started, well, yeah, as a child, I always loved animals. I had lots of cats and guinea pigs, and yeah, just always like felt a strong connection with animals. And I think I was around, I don't know, 10 or 12 years old when I told my parents I'm not eating animals anymore. I'm not eating meat, and I went vegetarian. And then it wasn't until about just over 10 years later. So it was like 2012, so 12 years ago. I was 23 years old, and I somehow found the Earthlings documentary. I think maybe I was following Peter on social media or something, and yeah, somehow I found out about Earthlings, and yeah, I think it was literally just watching 10 minutes of that. I think that's all it needed, all it took to turn me vegan. And I just remember watching that horrific footage and crying so much and
Mm.
just being like, yeah, how the hell is this happening? And it just like moved me so much. I was like, yeah, I'm going vegan straight away. And I also need to tell people what's going on. Like I felt really strongly that I needed to get the word out there. And if I did, other people would go vegan. So I started doing outreach. And then, yeah, just had this strong need to do more than just be vegan.
So you have been working with Animal Rising. And I want to start with the history of Animal Rising because it's kind of interesting. Your group started with Extinction Rebellion, and that's a grassroots climate action organization, and we have versions of it in the US. So they're pretty widespread and well known. But then Animal Rising kind of came out of that. There was Animal Rebellion, then Animal Rising. Tell us the history and how Animal Rising kind of evolved.
Yeah, so yeah, Extinction Rebellion started in the UK in 2019. And yeah, I remember they were blocking all the bridges in central London. And I remember being there and being like, oh, one day someone's going to do this for animals, not thinking that that could be actually, I think I said like in 10 years or something. Yeah, someone's going to do this for animals. And then I found out a few months later, something called Animal Rebellion, like a sister organization to Extinction Rebellion, had formed. So Animal Rebellion formed as a response to Extinction Rebellion because obviously Extinction Rebellion very climate focused, well they are climate focused, but weren't talking about animal agriculture's role in climate change, which is so disappointing and obviously is something we're seeing across a lot of the climate movement. And so Dan Kidby and Dora and others founded Animal Rebellion, and I think it was September, October of 2019 was the first like set of actions that happened under the Animal Rebellion name. And it was basically a week or two of actions and in London causing disruption using non-violent tactics. And yeah, that was the first time that I witnessed people getting arrested and making that kind of sacrifice for animals. I'd seen it for climate movement earlier that year, but seeing people getting arrested and just being like, wow, this is really powerful. It's just like something changed inside me, I think. Anyway, Animal Rebellion was in the beginning and very, very climate focused, and then became Animal Rising. Beginning of 2023, we kind of moved away from this. It's always been kind of, I'd say, probably the beginning, 80% climate messaging and 20% animal rights message, but always focused on the need to transition to a plant-based food system. That's like at the core of everything we do and all of our campaigns. And then beginning of last year, we kind of wanted to move away from Extinction Rebellion. We're often getting confused with Extinction Rebellion, which is not necessarily a bad thing if people think XR are talking about animal agriculture. Also, we were just kind of becoming like our own. We were no longer a sister organization to Extinction Rebellion. We're completely functioning as a totally separate organization, and we felt the time was right to rebrand and move more towards an animal rights message as well. And so under the Animal Rising kind of organization, we have the direct action campaigns, which are focused around creating a national conversation. And that's always under like the Animal Rising banner. But then we've got 3 other campaigns happening as well, which is plant-based universities, which is about passing 100% plant-based motions in universities. And we've had 12 universities now pass motions for 100% plant-based catering. We've also got plant-based councils, which are doing a similar thing at a council level. So councils passing motions, which has been really successful around the country as well. We've had 5 councils so far committing to 100% plant-based catering. And then the last one is vegan support the farmers, and that's about shifting a key stakeholder, obviously farmers. Yeah, we need farmers to help us in that transition to a plant-based food system. We can't do it without them. So yeah, that's like another campaign we're running as well.
Great. I love the name Animal Rising. And your vision came even sooner than you thought. You said, 10 years, maybe we'll be doing this for animals. Well, you created it even sooner than that, focused on
Mhm.
animals. I love it.
Well, yeah, we haven't quite shut down central London yet. So
Well, you'll get there. Well, so I invited you on because not only am I impressed with all that Animal Rising is doing, as you just said, but I'm really excited about your campaign exposing the RSPCA Assured certification or scheme, as you call it, around animal products. And of course, this reflects the work that we do at Compassionate Living, our Humane Hoax Project, the work that we do exposing humane washing. And first, if you could just kind of give us a history of the RSPCA. Of course, we have in the US, we have an equivalent, the ASPCA. It's the American version, so it's similar. But I think the RSPCA is certainly even older and more popular, I think, in the UK. And then tell us about this assured scheme that they have and what you've learned.
Yeah, so the RSPCA in the UK, so that's the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, it's the world's, as far as we know, it's the world's oldest and largest animal charity. So they formed 200 years ago this year,
Wow.
so the 200th year anniversary.
Wow.
One of the reasons we launched the campaign this year. Yeah, they obviously they're quite radical for their time, like 200 years ago. Yeah, people were not really thinking about animals so much and animal rights or welfare. And so I think, it's kind of a shame. I think they are doing some good work for dogs and cats and companion animals, but yeah, for farm animals, I believe they're completely failing them. And yeah, I guess also that's something that's kind of unique to the UK. Like the RSPCA is like this, obviously it's got the royal stamp of approval as well. So King Charles is the patron of the RSPCA. They're a
Wow.
really trusted animal charity. They're everywhere. They have charity shops in every high street, and you have animal centres and veterinary practices under RSPCA name too. Kind of like when you're growing up in the UK, you kind of just everyone knows the RSPCA are like the people to call if you find a sick or injured animal. And so yeah, they're just like this a key stakeholder in that. I see them as a key stakeholder in the animal movement too. Like they have a lot of influence on other animal groups, like the more conservative animal groups in particular. So yeah, we're asking them to basically be bolder in and brave in fighting for animals and really protecting all animals, not just dogs and cats. And
Yeah.
so with the Assured scheme, so they have this thing called RSPCA Assured, and it's basically them putting their stamp of approval on meat, eggs, dairy, and fish products, and basically endorsing the industry. So it's like this big animal charity are saying, putting their stamp of approval on these products, saying it's okay to eat these products because they're humane, had good lives and humane deaths, these animals. They actually actively promote RSPCA products as well through their own advertising, which is completely misleading because it shows animals running around in fields and things, the usual propaganda, and then also through supermarkets, for example. Marks and Spencer's is a big supermarket chain in the UK, and they're kind of seen as kind of like high-end supermarket, and they also endorse RSPCA, like they're promoting RSPCA assured products all the time, and have this misleading advertising. So we decided to investigate the RSPCA assured scheme because for about 15 years there have been multiple, every year there's constantly investigations coming out from other animal groups on RSPCA assured farms showing horrendous conditions on these farms. And yes, RSPCA assured compared to other welfare labels, it's supposed to be like a really high standard. We also have like others like Red Tractor in the UK, which has much lower standards, but RSPCA Assured is supposed to have really high standards and compared to others. And yeah, we did have conversations about whether to go for Red Tractor, but it's just like the significance of the RSPCA itself as a charity, the fact that it's supposed to be protecting animals, and the fact that the Assured scheme is supposed to be high welfare. If we can prove that their farms are not high welfare, that this is misleading and the conditions are awful, then by default, anything below the RSPCA assured scheme is also bad. So we're trying to dispel this like humane myth. I think at the end of last year, we're like, how do we undermine the scheme? Like, how do we prove this isn't working? Because like we know it's not working because of all these investigations, but each time they ignore them and maybe drop that farm from the scheme and dismiss the investigation as it's just like another bad apple. We were like, how are we going to prove this is like a massive, massive problem? We were like, we need to do the biggest investigation anyone's ever done on animal farming in the UK. We brought in about 50 volunteer investigators. So there was like a small team of us coordinating the investigations, and brought in all these volunteers to make this happen. And in the end, we exposed 45 of their farms, and we found that they're essentially factory farms. They're intensive farms. So the RSPCA actually says like they're against factory farms, but in fact, all the farms that we could find permits for, they said they're intensive farms. And I mean, you don't even need to see the permit. You can see with your own eyes. These are not the images that you see in the adverts. They're massively misleading the public. Like it's outright lies. We created a report, which is also on our website, showing all of our findings. And we've got a legal expert to look at the legal breaches, and she found 280 legal breaches and said this is essentially fraud. We've also had like the president of the RSPCA, Chris Packham. He's a well-known like BBC TV presenter. He's also vegan and an animal rights activist. And he's also managed to get this role as the president of the RSPCA, which I'm sure they're regretting now. But he came out against the Assured scheme and in support of us. So their own president is
Really?
saying they need to drop the scheme. Yeah, but
Wow.
progress is slow within the RSPCA. And yeah, we just had a meeting with them last week, and they told us they're not dropping the scheme. They still haven't finished their investigations into our investigation. And they're probably going to drop them.
Wait. Their investigation into your investigation.
Well, so they're reviewing all of our footage, and they're also investigating all of the farms that we exposed.
Oh,
So
I
yeah,
see.
they're
Okay.
kind of conducting their own investigation now. So we've,
I see.
but to be fair, it's a lot of work because yeah, it's 45 farms, and so we're still waiting for them to confirm what they're going to do about it. But basically, they've said they're not dropping the scheme. They're totally failing to understand how damaging this is for animals in the long term. So yeah, essentially, yeah, the RSPCA is just failing animals on an industrial scale, and yeah, our goal is to yeah get them to drop this scheme completely, and also start leading the way to protect all animals and promote a transition to a plant-based food system.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It's really great work. It's amazing that you investigated 45 farms. Something that we always say in the Humane Hoax Project is that all animal farming is factory farming. I think these kinds of schemes want to try to separate like, oh, these are different. These are smaller farms. These are, more humane farms. And what you find when you look into it, as you did, is that there are inherent cruelties that are universal, right, to making these products. And we get pushback, and I'm sure you probably have too, on our campaign asking, well, why are you focusing on small farms, and a small number of animals? You should focus on the factory farming, the quote unquote factory farming. But what you find when you look into this is that actually these labels are on like small farms and big farms. It doesn't really matter. You find it across the board, even on large farms. And I know some of these farms that you investigated were very large and had the same, paralleled processing and practices that go on all of these horrible farms. Can you talk about just some specifics of things that you found?
Yeah, so with land animals, we try to get to as many different species as possible for this investigation as well to show it's affecting all animals in animal agriculture. But yeah, so yeah, there was like a big focus on egg laying hens because yeah, in the UK, there's just like a massive number of egg farms are under the RSPCA Assured scheme. And yeah, we found every time we went to one of their sheds, these are like some of them were 64,000 hens in one shed, so they were huge. And yeah, every time we'd find dead hens and really, really crowded conditions. Also on broiler farm, I think one of the most shocking things was, yeah, these chicks. They often throw chicks on the ground when removing them from the crates into the farm. I think because of that, a lot of them had issues with their limbs, and so were just either dying on the floor or already dead. Yeah, can't really imagine what that could be like for those chicks. That was really hard. And I think the pigs as well, it was just the pig farms. But yeah, just when we were going on the pig farms, it was just super sad, like how crowded and cramped those conditions were and the smell. And I don't know, looking into like the pig's eyes, I don't know, that's just like, it's just so sad. And yeah, lack of enrichment, just really basic things like just living inside a shed, not seeing daylight. And then, yeah, just like having like some of them had nothing or maybe a chain hanging from the ceiling to play with. Yeah, so I guess like, yeah, we did see extreme examples of suffering, like horrendous suffering, but also just the average life of one of these animals is just so, so sad.
Yeah, you mentioned the chicks being thrown on the floor, and that's something that I actually discovered when I was researching for my first book, The Ultimate Betrayal. That's about 10 years old now, one of the first books that was ever written on humane washing. And I interviewed a worker who said that they would just, if there was a chick that was sick or, wasn't quite out of it was only halfway out of the shell, and they didn't have time to take the chick out of the shell fully, or just for any reason, there was numerous reasons, they would just throw them on the floor, and they would languish on the floor, for the whole day, and just suffer there. Most of them would be dead by the end of the day when they were sweeping them up. I couldn't imagine. It's just unthinkable that they would do that. And that's something else that I think isn't considered, that it's not just the farm, but it's also the hatcheries and the slaughterhouses. What happens before the farm? What happens after the farm? These animals go from facility to facility and have horrible cruelties along the way of the whole process. It's not just that one farm. So there's a lot to consider. It's so frustrating. I'm looking at our notes here, and the RSPCA, standing for Protecting Animals from Cruelty, right? That's in their name.
Yeah.
And that they would just, be so accepting of such horrifying cruelty that happens in all animal agriculture, no matter the scale or the size. Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, it does make me really sad. Like you said, it's in their name. They're supposed to be preventing cruelty to animals, and they're doing that for some animals. But yeah, just the fact that this massive animal charity, their end goal isn't to achieve the end of animal exploitation. It's just really hard to understand. And yeah, I'm just like, what's gone wrong there? Like, it's
Yeah.
just that their
Yeah.
yeah, the
Well,
end goal is just to carry on animal farming, but with better conditions. Like what?
yeah. Well, what's gone on there is speciesism. You said it. Speciesism, that they're protecting certain species that we have deemed worthy of, our protection, and then other species that have been put in this box category of animals to be used, animals to be eaten, animals to be exploited. And I think that they want to do the best they can, but you have to be able to cross that line of speciesism and realize that we have to see all animals in the light of that they all deserve to live free of human imposed suffering, of exploitation, of commodification. And as long as we categorize them in different ways, this exploitation is going to exist. So yeah, I'm glad that you're pushing that envelope, pushing them to look at their hypocrisy, really, of treating some animals differently than others.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's just so important that yeah, we hold even other animal organizations to account. I think people within the organization do genuinely there are people within the RSPCA that do genuinely care about animals. Obviously, our view is that yeah, they're not doing enough and they could do so much more and they have so much power and influence on I think the British public and also the animal movements.
So I know you also investigated some fish farms. Tell us about what you found there.
Yeah, in Scotland there are these massive offshore salmon farms, and yeah, many of them, almost all of them, are RSPCA assured. I mean, yeah, just the life of salmon is just so sad. Like they're in these like giant nets in the ocean, but they're in these giant nets, thousands and thousands of them just swimming around in circles all day, and most covered in sea lice with massive lesions and yeah, some missing eyes or fins and body parts. It's just, I don't know, it's hard to imagine, yeah, what their lives must be like and how much, I guess we don't know for definite how much pain they're in, but I
Well, is
can't
that was
imagine.
that was that maybe from like the sea lice?
Yeah, I think it can be from sea lice and other bacteria. There's also problems with like seals. Seals are getting into nets and eating them as well. But yeah, I guess that's something that would happen.
And the reason that this happens is because they're so confined. There's so many fish in such a small pool or net or area. So they're just kind of on top of each other. So the bacteria grows, sea lice is prevalent. And like you said, predators can get in there really easily and they just have a smorgasbord of fish to eat. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think, yeah, with salmon, I think we need to pay more attention to what's going on. I think it's also just so out of sight as well for most people. Yeah, I really didn't know much about salmon farming until this investigation. And yeah, I think it's something we need to pay more attention to. And I hope the public does as well, because yeah, it's honestly so shocking.
And you said there's a second phase or something that this campaign is going into. Let us know about that.
Yeah, so obviously we hoped that after our big investigation, they would just be like, yep, this is awful and we'll drop the scheme. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Despite this massive investigation, despite the president coming out against the scheme, and yeah, we also had support from like other notable people like George Monbiot, who's a kind of well-known journalist in the UK and written a great article for us in The Guardian. And we've had people up and down the country mobilize people to, yeah, sticker their products and put posters up and help put pressure on the RSPCA. But they've still met with us last week and told us they're not dropping the scheme. And so we're like, okay, we're going to move into like the next phase and put more pressure on the RSPCA. We're not giving up. Like, yeah, to begin with, it's focusing on their local branches and charity shops, because we know that going to their directly to their staff and volunteers and telling them the truth. So yeah, basically it's about mobilizing hundreds of people up and down the country to go out to their local branches and engage. First of all, engaging with the branches. It's about starting to build relationships with the branches and telling them what's going on with the RSPCA and the Assured scheme. But also, so it's like kind of this positive of like, yeah, going in and having conversations, but also outside the branches, we're going to be doing outreach, maybe other things, but for now we're starting with outreach. We're not blaming or yeah, attacking individuals or like staff members. We know it's not their fault, but we know that if we put pressure on the branches, they're going to call HQ, and that's going to put pressure on the RSPCA to act quicker and to do something about this.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, yeah, that's the course of action. You ask first, you ask nicely, you show them how cruel whatever it is they're doing is. And when they say, no, we're not changing, well, okay, then we're going to ask others to ask you. So, yeah, good. Well, this is really amazing work. I love that you have taken this on and that you're exposing this humane washing with this Assured campaign. So, thank you so much for that work. I want to ask you about something else that Animal Rising is kind of famous for, and that was your very successful disruption of the Grand National Horse Race. And I think this was one of the first actions that you took. It was controversial, it was powerful. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I guess start the Grand National Horse Race is the biggest horse race in the UK. Huge, huge event. And I don't think we've got any other animal event like that in the UK. I think obviously the reason we targeted that event was because we knew that it was going to be controversial and that we'd get a lot of press if we disrupted it, because it is just such a massive event and it's kind of on TV like all over the country, or you walk into a pub that day, it's going to be on the TV.
Mm.
Yeah, we knew it was a good event to disrupt, and obviously it being a horse race, I guess yeah, we've targeted other events and things, but not always animal events. And to get an animal message out there, it's obviously easier to target an actual animal event. So we were raising awareness for like obviously horse racing, but the real message was around animal exploitation, especially animal farming in general. Yeah, with the actual disruption. So the plan was to yeah disrupt the horse race for as long as we possibly could, although we knew that there's going to be heavy police presence and it would be really difficult. So it wasn't really about stopping the race from going ahead at all, because we knew that wasn't possible. It was just like get on the tracks and we know we're going to make headlines. But actually 2 weeks before the race, we were running these trainings, non-violence trainings, up and down the country for people that wanted to do the action. My training got infiltrated by a journalist, and it actually ended up on the front page of the Mail on Sunday 2 weeks before the race. And so we were actually in the headlines before we even did anything. So basically just for saying we were going to disrupt it, we got in the press and actually created this massive story. Anyway, we still, even despite them, basically telling, handed the evidence to the police as well. And despite all of this, we still got on the tracks and disrupted it and made headlines basically, and were able to speak to media about why we were there. And it was just quite quite a crazy day, to be honest. With police helicopters and quad bikes and everything trying to stop us. But
well, it's amazing that they knew that you were going to do that, and you still were able to. Congratulations, and of course, this was controversial. A lot of people were frustrated and said, "Oh, you've gone too far, and it was dangerous, and all of that." But this kind of thing is the kind of catalyst that can make massive change, that can really wake people up to what's going on a major scale. And so it's something that I wanted to talk to you about in a more broad sense is strategy in the animal freedom movement. And I've been studying strategy for a while, and the grassroots of any social justice movement, the grassroots is just really critical, right? We hear it again and again from anyone who has studied social change, is writing about social change. Moving people emotionally and gaining sympathy for a cause, even if it doesn't appear to at first. And that's, kind of like these big disruptions. Sometimes there's a lot of negativity that comes out. Initially, people are like, oh, they've taken it too far. Oh, they're disrupting the beloved event, or something like that. But then after that negativity dies down, oftentimes there is more sympathy for the cause. Anyway, I talked about this on my podcast recently, the trajectory of the movement favoring kind of the inside game and working with industry. But this outside game, this grassroots outside game of pushing back, it often gets kind of pushed aside and deemed as less important or even being possibly damaging or harmful, but it's so important to the healthy ecosystem of a movement. So I'd love to hear your thoughts of Animal Rising's philosophy and why you do direct action and grassroots.
I guess, I mean, I think we acknowledge that we need, there's not one way to go about things. Like, we need multiple strategies, multiple tactics, and there's not one right way to go about things. I think, we need, diversity of tactics. So I guess, we definitely acknowledge that it's not just about direct action, but I agree with you. I think direct action is really, really important. And I guess some things are hard to measure as well, because I think a lot of the movement is focused on measuring success, and particularly with like welfare reforms, it's like, oh this number of animals are going to suffer this percentage less. And things like cultural shifts and emotional engagement are really hard to measure. And the kind of direct action that we're doing is about creating a national conversation and creating debate and shifting culture. Like, that's our aim. We want to make sure what we're doing is effective as well, because if we found that this wasn't effective, then we would stop doing it, of course. And so we're trying to find ways to measure this. And we worked with Social Change Labs last year on the Grand National action to try, we attempted to measure the impact of that action. Before the action, we did there was a survey before the action, immediately after the action, and then another survey like a month later, once kind of things had died down. With direct action, we believe that people's initial reaction is like anger, like when they see people disrupting a horse race or people throwing soup on a painting, the initial reaction is like, oh my God, like, this is it's outrageous, or it's gone too far, or it's extreme. And people might feel angry, but then they've also heard the message as well of whatever the action is about. And then over a period of time, that kind of anger disappears, and then people still hold that message. And I don't know, they might not even realize, but maybe we've changed their mind a tiny, tiny bit. And some people, like myself, the first time, obviously I was already on board with animal rights message, but it was just like, for me, witnessing people sacrificing themselves and getting arrested, like that was transformational when I saw that. And there was like that emotional connection. And I still like get a lump in my throat when I think about the lunch counter sit-ins and freedom riders and like those actions, I think it's like so emotionally engaging when you see people sacrificing so much. So yeah, sorry, I was like going off on a tangent there, but yeah, back to like the survey. So yeah, it was kind of as we expected. Like there was that initial anger and like people like kind of like were against our action, and then over a period of time, like that reduced, and people's attitudes towards animals was more positive. But obviously, we can't. It's hard to measure if that was like just because of us or because there were other things going on. Yeah, my gut tells me that it's needed and we've seen it work in the past. And yeah, we've seen it work for other movements. And actually, I was considering this recently around people's attitudes towards fur, because I think there was a lot of direct action, probably like, yeah, in the 90s, with like people throwing like red paint at people wearing fur. And yeah, I don't know if I totally agree with, I don't know if it's like totally non-violent to throw paint on people, but obviously there was like these like a lot of actions around and negative messaging around like how harmful fur is for
Yeah.
animals. And now they're definitely in the UK and I'm sure other parts of the world, there is just like this generally most people are against fur and it has like negative connotations. And I was wondering if yeah, those direct actions like played a big part in that. And I don't know, I think it probably did, but I don't know if anyone's ever studied that. But yeah, it was just like
Mm.
something I've been thinking about lately.
Yeah, really interesting thought. It's true. In the 90s, there was a lot of direct action that got a lot of pushback at the time. The kind of extreme tactics in like with Fur Free Friday and doing lots of protesting, angry chanting, that kind of energy. But it's true. It's one of those issues that we've come very far on. And could that have been the catalyst to create that sympathy eventually? It's a,
Mhm.
yeah, good point. Yeah, and I also appreciate you saying the quantity versus quality in assessing our impact. I think this is really critical right now with the influence of effective altruism in the funding of animal rights and animal welfare. And, it's true. It's hard to measure. It's really hard to measure. And when you suddenly have like big numbers of animals, like with a welfare campaign, yes, it's affecting whatever, 50,000 pigs, but affecting in what way? I mean, really, is it better? Is it a better quality of life to the extent that it's worth our time and energy? With some of these welfare campaigns where you're giving a little bit better conditions for animals, it's a tough thing, and I think that we have to look at both quantity and quality in everything we do. Yeah, we want to measure, we want to use studies. I love that you did the studies before and during and after with the Grand National Horse Race. It's really so important to get some data around it. But like you said, there could have been other factors in the shift. Who knows? So it's tough to know. And that's where a diversity of tactics is so important because we're not really sure what works. But it is good to keep all means of activism healthy.
No, definitely. I think, yeah, I would like to see more unity. And I think, yeah, there's lots of like different opinions on what is more effective and, yeah, where we should be spending more of our resources. But yeah, also just like there are some things we just don't know for certain.
I agree. It's really important to be working together, supporting each other as much as possible. I guess my line with that is just as long as our our projects, our campaigns, everything that we're doing is moving us towards animal freedom, moving us in that direction. Like for instance, with the Assured campaign, you could see that as kind of a paralleled campaign, like, oh, they're helping, they're wanting to help, but is it leading us in the direction of animal freedom? But also, there's the issue that it's just a hoax. It's not, that these animals are not in any better conditions. But with welfare campaigns, we certainly want to be moving in the direction of no exploitation, no commodification of animals at all. it's tough. It's a gray area sometimes to know who to support and partner with. But that's, I think, a good measurement and a good way to assess whether this is something that we should be working towards. And that is it taking us in the direction of animal freedom, or is it taking us just kind of into a diversion into just another way to exploit animals with a different label?
No, yeah, I totally agree. I think there is definitely a difference between the assured scheme and something like like cage-free eggs, or I guess like the actual like actively promoting of like high welfare products is definitely a massive problem. I guess personally, I'd probably argue that we should be focusing more attention on transformative change and pushing for like a plant-based food system and repeating that message rather than welfare reforms in general. I think there's too much energy going into that.
Yeah, yeah, and I love your campaign with the universities
Mm.
and getting them to go plant-based. That's
Mhm.
really a great place to be focusing is with younger people.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like that proves that people, I don't know, it's not that radical to ask for 100% plant-based catering. It's not that radical anymore. Like we're living in different times. We're not living in the 90s anymore. It's like non-vegans are voting for these motions to be passed. And people want it to be more convenient to buy plant-based products. And they do care about animals and the planet. That is like a really, really exciting campaign.
Yeah.
We're finding that we can if you don't ask, you don't get. Like if you don't ask for the 100%, you're never going to get it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. That's right. And I often say that with the vegan message as well. If you don't ask, if people say, oh, well, just ask for something smaller like Meat Free Monday. Well, okay, that's fine, but let's ask about vegan as well. Let's ask for people to live vegan as well. If you don't ask, they don't know that they have that option. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's very important. And I love that you said it's not the 90s anymore. We can ask for 100% plant-based in
Mhm.
cafeterias and that's really hopeful. And that kind of leads me into our last question that I have for you, Rose. What gives you hope for the future?
Well, yeah, honestly, the university's campaign is one of the things that gives me hope. And I think just like younger generations, like seeing. I don't know, I'm so impressed by all the young people like still at university taking action and running campaigns. Like I was not doing that at their age. So I think just like younger generations give me hope. And I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like something is happening in the movement. Maybe I'm talking to people more, like Animal Rising is talking to people more, but I just feel like connections are being made more, both like in the UK and globally. And I don't know, I feel like people are coming together more within the movement. Stuff is happening, like bubbling up under the surface, and I hope it's going to explode soon. But I know I'm just feeling really positive about things.
Well, good, good, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear of all your wonderful work in the UK with Animal Rising. It was really, really great talking to you, Rose. Thank you for being on the podcast.
No, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everything you're doing for the animals too.
Thank you for listening to the Hope for the Animals podcast. I have so much going on right now with the Sonoma County Veg Fest that's coming up on September 28th in Santa Rosa, California, that I need to make this ending short and sweet. So please share this episode, give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app, do all the things that help us grow. And please know that I appreciate you listening so much. Okay, so until next time, go out, enjoy the last of summer, and live vegan.